Welcome back to another episode of Sean and Ed's Do Baseball. I'm Sean.
And I'm Ed.
And we are bringing you baseball history.
That's right. We're bringing you baseball history on our bi-weekly baseball history podcast where the story catcher doesn't know what the story pitcher is out on the mound throwing them.
And that makes it more fun or difficult. I can't figure it out. Anyways, it's better. It's better. Makes it better.
It's certainly more interesting. We've been saying this for almost 70 episodes now, probably, and it's, we've talked about this before, but we've come to the conclusion that it's not a great metaphor, but it works for us.
It does. It does work for us. And what else works for us is being online. I don't know. I guess we are not always online. Actually, we probably should post more, if anything, but we're busy. But you can still find us on the internet. Where can people find us, Ed?
People can find us around the World Wide Web at Doing Baseball or at Doing.Baseball. If you're perusing around the interwebs and you're looking for us, one of those two handles should lead you in the right direction. So give one of those a click, chime in on some conversation, give us a story idea. We would love to hear from you.
Distract us from our failing baseball team.
Yes,
please and thank you.
Please.
And speaking of distracting yourself from your failing baseball team, Two Loons Brewing. It's summertime. Two Loons has a fantastic patio. I actually went and had a beer at Two Loons. It was fantastic. You can check them out at twoloonsbrewing.com or at Two Loons Brewing. They got great new beers on the way as well. You can find them at your local LCBO or your local watering hole. And if you don't see it there, ask them. Ask them to bring in Two Loons Brewing because it's a great beer that they should have on their shelves or on their tap. And, as always,
please be of legal drinking age and, of course, enjoy responsibly.
Yes. I'm going to have a Two Loons, and I'm going to sit back. Do you know what type of pitch you're going to be throwing today, Ed Z?
I think this is going to be, I guess the technical term is a changeup, but I'm going to call this a slow ball.
Okay, sure.
Because it is a relatively long story, and I was kind of, I decided to tell this story because, based on our recent conversation with Dr. Byland at University of Louisville, as we do, we shed stories or shed light on stories that are a little bit forgotten, and this is kind of a Black history story, but also based on our conversation, I didn't want to continue to sort of relegate those stories to just February. I mean, not that we really do that consciously, but I feel like we don't tell enough Black history stories outside of February.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of history, and we have those guidelines for February. We don't make it outside of that we can't, but no, I'm glad. Let's do it. I'm looking forward to hearing a good Black baseball history story today. Let's go.
Okay, here we go. So, Sean, whenever people talk about baseball's integration, the same names usually come up. And like names like Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, Satchel Paige, Willie Mays, and these names absolutely should come up. Like, these guys are giants, but baseball history is full of players who quietly kicked open doors without ever getting the recognition they deserved. And today's story is about one of those men, and unless you're a serious baseball historian or a fan of the old Washington Senators, there's a good chance you've never heard of him. Which is a shame, because this man wasn't just another talented ball player from Cuba. He became the first Black player in the history of the Washington Senators.
Oh.
breaking a racial barrier that the franchise had stubbornly clung to years after other clubs had begun integrating. And like so many pioneers, the road wasn't glamorous. It was complicated, it was unfair, and at times it was downright absurd. So today, Sean, I'm going to tell you the story about Carlos Paula Conil.
Okay.
And
I thought I was a fan of Washington baseball. Apparently not.
but you've not heard of this guy?
One of my favorite franchises that has existed in 4 different numerations, I guess, over time. But no idea. No idea who this is.
Okay, well, just to clarify here, the name here, Carlos Paula Conil, is in the, it's presented in that order due to the Latin naming traditions.
Okay.
But in a more English-speaking world, let's say, he's known as Carlos Paula.
Okay.
Or
is it Paula or Paula? I don't even know. I'm just
it's spelled Paula, so I'm gonna go with Paula.
Sure.
I guess in my bastardization of the pronunciation, probably. But anyway, Carlos Paula Conil entered the world on November 28th, 1927, in Havana, Cuba. He grew up in a large family with 4 brothers and 3 sisters. But oddly enough, that's about where the certainty surrounding his childhood ends. Historians still don't know much about his parents, what they did for a living, or even many details about the family's daily life. It's one of those frustrating gaps that occasionally appears when researching players from that era or that part of the world. What we do know is that life wasn't easy for him. An early profile painted the picture of a young man who left school after the 7th grade and immediately went to work doing just about anything that would put food on the table. He waited tables, he dug ditches, and he even stepped into the ring as a prize fighter.
Oh.
Which is quite the resume. Most teenagers today complain when the Wi-Fi slows down, but Carlos Paula was apparently saying, sure, I'll dig a ditch all morning, serve dinner all evening, and if someone wants to punch me for money afterwards, why not?
I mean, in all fairness, he gets to punch them back.
That is true. That is true. I mean, he's not just volunteering to be a jobber,
Sure.
So somewhere amid all that hard work, Carlos married and eventually had 2 sons, Carlos Jr., born in 1949, and Jose, born in 1951. But curiously, even the identity of his wife and the date of their wedding has been lost to history. So, I just thought I'd throw that in there. He did grow up to become a family man. It's kind of remarkable how someone who would eventually play Major League Baseball could still leave behind so many unanswered questions. Baseball, though, was beginning to answer one very important question. Could this big Cuban kid really play? And the answer came quickly. In 1950, Paula joined the Havana Cuban Stars, which was a traveling team that barnstormed through the United States. And that summer of 1950, the Cuban Stars faced opponents like the New York Black Yankees and the Omaha Rockets, the latter of which was managed by Hall of Famer James Cool Papa Bell.
All right, throwback.
Yeah, which was not, this was not exactly a casual introduction to American baseball. And the following season, the Cuban Stars returned, and Carlos Paula began putting together one impressive performance after another. He homered in a victory backed by pitchers Luis Puga and Alberto Mieres. He robbed hitters with spectacular catches in deep left field. He went 3 for 5 with a double against Kearney, Nebraska, and then he hit for the cycle against Waukon, Iowa.
Okay.
As if that wasn't enough, he drove in all 6 runs during a 12-inning victory over Brookings, South Dakota. So he's carrying the team. He's putting the team on his shoulders and carrying them uphill. By September, the Cuban Stars had compiled an incredible record of 69 and 19.
Okay. So
Include
not only is he carrying them, but he's carrying them to, like, they are spectacularly good.
they are, as the team says, they are stars. This also included a 15-0 demolition of the famous House of David team. And along the way, newspapers often Americanized Carlos's name, referring to him simply as Charlie.
Oh, I'm sure that made research fun.
Yeah. So, with all this success that he's having, naturally, scouts started to notice. And New York Yankees scout Joe McDermott wanted to sign Paula and two of his teammates for the Class D Duluth Dukes. But unfortunately, some immigration rules got in the way because the Cuban players were in the United States under temporary travel arrangements. They weren't permitted to sign professional contracts until they first returned home.
Okay. I mean, that complicates things, but I don't see why they're like, I know it's a different era as well. You can't just like FaceTime them. But yeah, no, it's just like, well, go home and then come back and sign the contract.
Mm-hmm. I have here that, baseball has always loved bureaucracy almost as much as batting averages. But even so, promoter Red Brummer estimated Paula had hit 34 home runs in just 128 games over those 2 seasons with the Cuban Stars.
That's impressive.
That's pretty good. And people were obviously paying attention. So by early 1952, reports initially suggested Paula would indeed head to Duluth, but instead he signed with the Decatur Commodores of the Mississippi-Ohio Valley League.
All right.
And this turned out to be the perfect landing spot because it was managed by fellow Cuban Julio Acosta, and the Commodores immediately plugged Paula into the cleanup spot and left field, to which he responded by hitting .334, collecting 152 hits, and leading the entire league with 16 triples while helping Decatur win the championship.
Okay.
So, that triples number there, illustrates that Carlos Paula wasn't just a slugger. Like, he could absolutely fly for a man that was 6'3".
Uh-huh.
So that winter, he also began what would become an important chapter of his career, where he joined the Almendares Scorpions in the Cuban League, where he would spend 9 consecutive winters wearing that uniform. And unlike today's offseason, winter baseball in Cuba wasn't, just a tune-up. It was an elite.
No.
It was an elite baseball league.
Well, and that's some of the stuff that our pal Adam really looks at and to understand. Like, hey, this wasn't exhibition games. This was like some of the best baseball in the world going on in some of these leagues in winter ball, but Major League Baseball doesn't consider it equal, let's just say.
Exactly. I was going to mention in my little spiel at the top of the episode there that, unless you're a Washington Senators diehard history fan or Adam Dorowski, you probably haven't heard of this guy, but
100%.
Anyway.
100%.
Anyway, to carry on that point, many major leaguers, Negro League stars, and top Latin American players competed there every year, making the Cuban League one of the strongest baseball leagues anywhere in the world. And the next summer, when he came back to America, Paula advanced. It brought a promotion which advanced Paula to the Paris Indians of the Class B Big State League. But unfortunately, owner Arturo Gonzalez decided that payroll needed trimming, and rather than releasing Paula entirely, he simply sent him back to Decatur in August.
Okay.
Which, oddly enough, and understandably, that move strengthened Decatur just in time for another pennant chase. Sometimes baseball transactions make perfect sense, and sometimes they make you wonder if someone drew names out of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
But then came the winter of 1953-54, and everything changed when Paula's contract was sold to the Washington Senators.
Okay. So did he have a parent team that he was dealing with at this point, or he was just in for this, like, minor league, and he just signed independently?
My understanding is that he just signed independently. Hold on, let me go up here for... Yeah, because the thought was it was a Yankees scout that was interested in him.
Yeah.
But because he was originally thought to be going to Duluth, which I believe was a Yankees affiliate, but he ended up signing with Decatur, which I believe was an independent signing. So
okay.
Let me just get back to my spot here.
I don't see Decatur affiliated with anybody at this time.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's been sold to the Senators.
Sure.
You know, I guess similar to today when we see, you know, a Japanese player or whatever, they're being posted and they've been sold to an American team. Anyway, carrying on. The deal. Sorry, go ahead.
He's off, so he's going to have to change teams though, because he can't be on Decatur anymore if he's playing for Washington, or at least in the organization, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So this deal brought Paris owner Gonzalez $1,500, but more importantly, it brought Carlos into an organization run by legendary Cuban scout Joe Cambria, whose remarkable eye for talent had already delivered numerous Cuban players to Washington. And Cambria didn't hesitate when he declared Paula, quote, a player who can do everything well enough to be in the majors. Which was high praise from a man who'd seen almost everyone worth seeing in Cuban baseball, and the timing couldn't have been more significant. By 1954, Jackie Robinson had already transformed baseball. Larry Doby had integrated the American League, and the New York Yankees were preparing to debut Elston Howard. Yet somehow the Washington Senators, which was a charter American League franchise, still had never fielded a black player. And Paula suddenly found himself competing to become the first. Spring training in Orlando that year immediately made him impossible to ignore. As I said, he stood 6'3", weighed about 195 pounds, and sports writers struggled to describe him without reaching for colorful comparisons. One writer said that he was built like a blacksmith. Another thought he looked like a railroad section hand. And Shirley Povich, Maury's dad, wrote that Paula had the build and face of an old heavyweight boxer, but also noted that he spoke English better than most Cuban players.
Okay. Like, he looks like he fights people, but he's got great English.
Yeah, he's well spoken. Apparently, Carlos made an impression before he even picked up a bat. On March 8th, 1954, his first exhibition appearance, Paula pinch hit for Washington and became the first black player ever to appear in a Washington Senators lineup. He fouled out with the bases loaded, which was not exactly the Hollywood ending, but history rarely announces itself with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as a routine foul ball. But manager Bucky Harris loved what he saw anyway, and he said, quote, he can whack that ball. He has size and power. Even better, Harris marveled that Paula wasn't merely fast for a big man. Quote, he runs like a deer.
All right.
Which is obviously high praise. Although Harris didn't think Carlos had a hitch in his swing. Although Harris did think that Carlos had a hitch in his swing. Baseball managers are funny that way. You can run like a deer, hit like a cannon, throw lasers from left field, but sometimes they'll still say, yeah, but I don't like what his front elbow's doing. And Sean, just as it looked like Carlos Paula was about to make history in Washington, history reminded everyone that baseball in 1954 still had a very ugly side. As spring training wound down in 1954, another Cuban player, Angel Skull, seemed to have the inside track to making Washington's opening day roster. Skull was considered the superior defensive player, and even Topps thought that he was the safer bet, printing him in its 1954 baseball card set while leaving Paula out entirely.
Ooh, Topps. Throwing some shade.
Yeah.
Well, this dude's name is Angel what?
Angel Skull.
Like, as in, like, your head?
No, it's with a C, not a K.
Okay.
I noted that too. I was like, that's a pretty metal name, you know?
But it's a super metal name. It's if I was Topps, I'd be like, we got a choice. This guy,
Yeah.
This guy's name's Angel Skull, or this guy, he's Carlos Paula.
Skull it is.
Skull it is.
So there's these two guys fighting for the spot to make the debut on the Senators, but manager Bucky Harris wasn't ready to choose, and he admitted that neither Skull nor Paula had really proven they could consistently hit major league pitching, but he suspected both could, and he believed there was a good chance the club would keep them. So it sounded promising, but it wasn't really. An official in Winter Garden, Florida, where Washington's farm clubs were training, reportedly instructed farm director Ozzie Bluge to, quote, get his Cuban Negroes out of town.
Oh, dear.
So, think about that for a second. Not because they couldn't play, not because they broke any rules, simply because they were black, they were, told to get out of town and not, they weren't, being chosen to make a spot on the Senators.
Yeah. They're like, hey, got bad news. You're not going to make the team. Also, you need to leave right the fuck now.
Yeah. So, with that, the Cuban players were understandably furious. And
yes.
Angel Skull was sold to the Havana Sugar Kings shortly afterward, which ended any chance he had of becoming Washington's first black player. And he would never appear in a regular season major league game.
Damn. Scully. Darn.
Just done.
He did play for Toronto, so a little local flavor there.
Did he?
Skull boy. He did. I'm on his baseball reference page. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's cool. To his credit, 84-year-old Senators owner Clark Griffith publicly refused to move his entire farm system out of Winter Garden. He argued that leaving would be just as discriminatory as the actions that had caused the problem in the first place. Griffith insisted...
Really?
I know. I found this a little suspect as well because, I know the story. Isn't there a story of Griffith not wanting to build his stadium in a particularly black neighborhood in Washington?
Oh, 100% there is. 100% there is. Anyways, yes, besides the point, but being like, well, I know this, place where we do spring training is racist, but if we leave, then we're racist too. Like, what?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
I know.
Okay.
So I feel like it's a little trying to save face in the public, but...
It's suspect at best.
Yeah. Anyway, Griffith insisted that black players had already proven they belonged in professional baseball and that Washington intended them to give them a fair treatment, apparently. It's an interesting quote because it reflects the complicated position Griffith occupied. Publicly, he defended his players. Privately and historically, the Senators had earned a reputation for moving painfully slowly when it came to integration.
Yes. It's like, they can play, just not in a black neighborhood.
Yeah. Sometimes progress comes with speeches. Sometimes it comes with hesitation. Washington somehow managed both at the same time. There was another obstacle that had nothing to do with talent. The Senators' AA affiliate played in Chattanooga, part of the Southern Association, which still refused to integrate.
Yeah, there was a little bit of this in the Sulphur Dell episode, but I didn't get into too much about the league and stuff. But yeah, no, 100%.
Right. So their intention was to send him to Double A, but because of exactly, because of this lack of integration, it meant that Paula couldn't even be assigned there. So instead, Paula was sent to the Charlotte Hornets of the South Atlantic League.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Makes sense. Still in the South, but I guess more progressive in Charlotte, and they seem to recycle names.
Yes. Yeah. They were teal and purple.
Yeah.
I don't know, but even there, history followed him. Carlos Paula became the first black player ever to wear a Charlotte Hornets uniform.
Sick.
Ironically, he was now the only black player in the Senators' American-based farm system after other black prospects were assigned elsewhere. If Washington wanted proof they had made a mistake leaving him in the minors, Paula wasted absolutely no time providing it. In just the Hornets' 6th game, he blasted the club's first home run of the season. Not satisfied with that, he added a triple and 2 singles during a 13-inning victory over Jacksonville. So he's a double shy of the cycle.
Damn.
Apparently, Carlos believed in making efficient use of an afternoon. By the end of April, newspapers were already predicting he'd be recalled at the first sign Washington needed help. The problem was Washington desperately needed help. The Senators struggled while Paula absolutely demolished South Atlantic League pitching. In May, he launched a home run against Montgomery that 2 sports writers estimated traveled 559 feet, which it did.
He's getting the Luke, the Luke Easter treatment.
Yeah,
like this dude hits it 600 feet, and he probably hit it maybe 500, probably like 480 or 490. But yeah okay.
We've talked about this before, but anyway, that's what the sports.
Rowdy Tellez is the only man that can hit one over 500.
Yes, that's right.
We will go to our graves.
Now, anytime you hear distance estimates from the 1950s, it's worth raising one eyebrow. Baseball writers of that era occasionally measured home runs using something between a tape measure and pure optimism, but still, even if they exaggerated by 50 feet, which I think they probably exaggerated by more than 50 feet, either way, that's still a baseball that needed a passport before it landed. And by the end of May, Paula led the Sally League with 33 RBIs, 2 ahead of an 18-year-old rookie playing in South Carolina, who was named Frank Robinson. Yes.
All right.
That Frank Robinson. Which is, to say that's pretty good company to keep. The next month, June, only made his case stronger. He carried a 13-game hitting streak, owned a .352 batting average, and had already hit 9 home runs and knocked in 43 runs.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the parent club was sitting 10.5 games behind first place. So fans naturally wondered, what exactly are we waiting for? And it turns out the Senators were asking themselves the same question. Vice President Calvin Griffin admitted the club had debated promoting Paula immediately. He also admitted they were scared.
Oh.
But not scared of Carlos, they were scared of rushing him, apparently. Griffith worried... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I guess he hasn't gotten super high, but I'm pretty sure... Yeah, anyways, he's still slugged like 500 the year before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Griffith worried that if Paula wasn't completely ready and failed in Washington, that the experience might permanently damage his confidence, which, from a baseball perspective, it's understandable. But from the perspective of a player who had already proven everything possible in Class A, it had to be maddening.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Class A is not exactly as we talked about with the Double A and stuff like that, but there is D and C and B leagues at this time. It's a pretty high minor league.
Yeah, there's no Triple A at this time. Double A is the highest.
You can play in the International League. you could play in the International League. But anyways, yes.
Right,
yes,
but,
double A the highest.
but was the International League considered AAA at the time?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's classified as that. But at the same point, as you say, there is the American Association League, which is technically AAA as well. But I digress. But I think the International League and the American Association were technically the highest you could go outside of the majors at this time.
Right. Anyway, yeah, the point is that he's only in A because they can't send him to Double A for racist reasons. But
100%, it's absurd.
Yeah. But anyway, there was another setback that came up. Former major leaguer Sherry Robertson, who is now assisting the farm system, recommended against promoting Paula. He believed Carlos still needed more seasoning before facing major league pitching. It's one of those evaluations that historians still debate. Was Robertson genuinely protecting a talented prospect, or was Washington simply finding another reason to delay integrating the club? And, documents over history don't really answer that question. They just simply record the decision, and the decision was to wait. But Charlotte, however, adored him. The city's fullback club, a black sports organization, honored Paula before a home game in June. A few weeks later, he represented the Hornets as their lone all-star in the South Atlantic League game. And the numbers kept piling up, the fans kept cheering, and eventually Washington ran out of excuses. By early September, the Senators were buried in the standings, 39 games behind first place.
What?
Their season was effectively over. So on September 2nd, 1954, they finally called Carlos Paula to the major leagues, along with Jim Lemon, Roy Dietzel, and Steve Korchek. 4 days later, history arrived, and Carlos Paula became baseball's first black senator. And there's a poetic touch to where it happened. His debut came at Griffith Stadium, a ballpark that had already hosted legendary black baseball for decades. The Homestead Grays had played there, the Washington Black Senators had played there, the Washington Elite Giants had played there. And Black Stars had thrilled crowds in that stadium for years. Yet somehow, it had taken until September of 1954 for the American League's Washington Senators to finally put a black player on the field wearing their uniform. So, he's finally there, and Paula started both games of a doubleheader against the Philadelphia Athletics. His first major league box score wasn't exactly spectacular, but it was respectable. He had a double and a single, 2 hits in his first 9 at-bats.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. I mean, I guess it was a double header, so that's why he was 2 for 9. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little, but 2 hits in your first game, even if it's a double header. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I would say that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that there's not much slug there, getting just a single and a double, but it's not. Yeah. It's not awful.
No. Okay, so he goes 2 for 9 in his first day, which they make him play twice, which is crazy. Would never happen nowadays.
No.
But yeah, all right.
So he comes in, goes 2 for 9. History doesn't always require fireworks. Sometimes it just requires showing up and proving that you belong. But the rest of September wasn't easy. Paula appeared in only 9 games and hit just 167. Reporters noticed he still chased pitches outside the strike zone, something that had also cropped up during spring training. And others wondered whether his promotion had been genuine or simply a symbolic gesture once Washington's season had already collapsed. It's impossible to know what Carlos thought of the matter, but imagine waiting all year, watching your team lose, leading your league, and then finally getting called up when the games barely mattered anymore. which is a difficult situation for any rookie, especially one carrying the weight of history. Still, the season wasn't over for Carlos, though winter meant a return home to Cuba. So he goes back to Almendares and back to one of the strongest leagues in the world and back to proving that September hadn't been the end of the story. In fact, it was only the beginning, because 1955 would become the finest season of Carlos Paula's career. The Senators had hired veteran manager Charlie Dressen, and suddenly people inside the organization began talking about Paula as a legitimate everyday player. Owner Clark Griffin admitted that, quote, that big galoot could be a good player for us with a little more preparation. Now, Sean,
galoot.
Yeah, I was just going to comment to that, Sean. If your boss ever describes you as that big galoot, you're probably not getting employee of the month. But in Griffith, sorry, go ahead.
It means clumsy, foolish, or eccentric.
Yeah.
I think my boss could describe me as galoot.
I mean,
but yes,
you're not far off.
In this case, once again, suspect.
Yeah. In Griffith's case, it was actually a compliment. Griffith also recognized another reality, that Washington had a large black population, and after years of resisting integration, the organization finally understood that having a successful black star could help both on the field and at the ticket window. 5 black players reported to spring training in 1955, but Dressen believed the Cuban infielder Juan Delis had the best chance of succeeding. Even so, Dressen and coach Cookie Lavagetto spent countless hours helping Paula refine his swing. Great name, by the way. Let's quickly aside, Cookie Lavagetto. But
oh my God.
Moving on.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, stopping quickly, moving on quickly. Their work paid off, and Paula made the opening day roster. At first, he mostly appeared as a pinch hitter, patiently waiting for an opportunity, and that opportunity finally arrived in May when struggling left fielder Roy Sievers fell into a prolonged slump, and Carlos stepped into the lineup, and he never looked intimidated. Writer Sam Lacey pointed out something many fans overlooked. Paula was already 26 years old as a rookie, and that wasn't because he developed slowly. It was because talented black players often weren't given opportunities until years after equally talented white players had already reached the majors. Lacey argued that circumstances, not ability, had delayed careers like Paula's. At the same time, some observers noted that Washington's long-standing reluctance to sign African American players had gradually evolved into a greater willingness to sign black players from Latin America instead. Whatever the politics behind the scenes, Carlos let his bat do the talking. Washington columnist Shirley Povich, who had once questioned Paula's defense, now praised his development. He wrote that Paula had become one of the better outfielders on the club despite his size. He had speed, a strong throwing arm, excellent judgment. Sure, there were still little things to polish, especially on the bases, but the raw athletic ability was impossible to deny. It's funny how quickly opinions change once somebody starts getting hits. And then came one of the biggest moments of his career. On September 2nd, 1955, the Senators faced the mighty New York Yankees. Whitey Ford was carving through Washington's lineup with a no-hitter. 7 innings in, Carlos Paula lined a single, no more no-hitter. And if you're going to spoil somebody's masterpiece, spoiling Whitey Ford's isn't a bad choice. From August into September, Paula caught absolute fire. During a remarkable 22-game stretch, he hit .450, collecting 36 hits and raising his season average to .326 before cooling off slightly during the final weeks. He finished the year batting .299, second on the club only to veteran Mickey Vernon.
Okay.
But there was, however, one blemish. His fielding percentage ranked last among American League outfielders. And, some statistics can be misleading, though, because Paula covered a tremendous amount of ground because of his speed, meaning he often reached balls many outfielders never even attempted. But I guess on paper, errors are errors.
Yeah, at the time, for sure. I mean, obviously they weren't measuring like his first three steps to a ball that like allows outfielders to get to those balls better than anybody else. But so there's a good chance he was just so athletic that he got to more balls and therefore, I guess, dropped more balls. I mean, there's a difference between like Derek Fisher, Toronto Blue Jay,
Yeah,
and just a guy that has more chances at balls that misses balls. Let's just say.
yeah.
But I will say, there's the old saying I think is, infield errors cause base runners and outfield errors cause runs.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is true.
yeah, there is that. There is that.
Even so, Carlos had firmly established himself as a legitimate major leaguer. He'd gone from anonymous Cuban barnstormer to one of Washington's brightest young stars in barely a few seasons, which was not bad for a man who once dug ditches for a living. That winter, Paula returned once again to Almendares. Fresh off his breakout major league season, he successfully negotiated a substantial salary increase in Cuba from $450 per month to $1,000 a month. After a slow start, he finished the winter hitting .293. Meanwhile, not everyone in Washington's press was complimentary. Sports writer Bob Addy jokingly described Paula as, quote, a child of nature who seemed allergic to thinking.
Oh, so is he calling him simple?
I guess.
Okay, weird.
I assume they're not, they don't think he's taking good routes in the outfield. That's what I think is going on.
Sure.
That's one of those newspaper lines that's kind of funny unless you're Carlos Paula reading it over breakfast. But then came the season of 1956, and things began to unravel. During spring training, Paula received devastating news from home. His mother, sadly, had suffered a heart attack, and Carlos immediately returned to Cuba to care for her. Rather than simply welcoming him back when he was ready, the Senators reportedly threatened to fine him for not returning on schedule.
Oh, jeez.
which is terrible.
Stop taking care of your mom.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of Randy Bass in Japan when his child was sick.
Yeah, 100%.
Just to throw back to another episode there, but anyway, carrying on. It's one of those moments that reminds you professional sports can sometimes lose sight of basic humanity. Instead of making the opening day roster, Paula was optioned to the Denver Bears, a Yankees affiliate in the American Association.
Okay.
He responded the only way he knew how, by hitting. Over his first 27 at-bats, he batted .481. By mid-May, he owned a .375 average with 6 home runs and forced Washington to recall him. Unfortunately, the magic never returned. On June 11th, Paula crushed a pinch-hit 3-run homer against Kansas City, and it would prove to be the final home run of his major league career. He struggled to a .183 average, and by late June, the Senators sent him back to the minors, this time with Louisville. He would never again appear in a Major League Baseball game. But that doesn't mean he stopped playing. Far from it. Paula immediately began hitting again in Louisville, opening his stay with hits in 6 consecutive games, including 3 home runs. Even while leading the American Association in batting during August, he was traded again, this time to the Miami Marlins, of the International League. But, there we go, another recycled name. But Miami,
Oh my God, yeah.
Miami proved disastrous, and he hit only 158. One newspaper joked he fielded ground balls as though he were trying out as a drop kicker for the University of Miami football team.
All right, that's a good line. I like it.
Yeah. As if that weren't enough, a Louisville employee rolled Paula's Cadillac 3 times in an accident.
Oh, who did that to him?
A Louisville employee. I assume they were bringing his vehicle down to him in Miami after being traded.
Yeah, they're like, hey, about your car, sir.
Yeah. We'd like to speak to you about your car's insurance policy.
Yeah. What if the Bat Boy rolled your car 3 times?
Yeah.
Not just once.
Would that upset you? Would that upset you? Would you be more upset if it was 4 or 5 times, or less upset? The newspaper summed it up perfectly. Quote, the employee escaped unhurt, but the car didn't. So, you know, that was probably the most expensive slump that Carlos had all year.
That's wild.
It cost him a whole car.
I hope that the team bought him a new car.
I would hope so. I wasn't able to find anything on that, but I would hope so. Washington briefly recalled him in September alongside a young Harmon Killebrew, but Paula never got into a game. By 1957, he was back in the American Association with Minneapolis. Injuries slowed him early, but he still led the league in batting as late as mid-June before fading badly during the second half. The Senators, now out of minor league options, finally severed ties with him before the 1958 season, selling him to Sacramento of the Pacific Coast League. So Carlos kept moving. First he was in Sacramento, and then Havana's Sugar Kings, and then he was in Mexico City, wherever there was still baseball, basically. He could still hit. He batted, in these minor leagues, he could still hit. He batted .315 in Sacramento, .312 for Havana, and .339 for Mexico City Tigers in what became his final full professional season. But baseball was no longer the only story unfolding. Cuba was changing rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And during the 1959 season with Havana, Paula was suspended after missing a team flight and later being arrested following an incident in the stands during a game.
Oh.
So he gets into a skirmish with a fan, I assume, and ends up getting arrested. And then he gets suspended. In January 1960, he was jailed in Havana accused of assaulting a policeman associated with Fidel Castro's new government.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So he just punches a cop. We don't know what, but he hits a cop at some point. He's fighting fans. He's fighting the revolutionary police force.
Yeah.
All right.
And then tragedy struck close to home again. Carlos's brother, known as, quote, the Black Hand during the Batista regime, was executed after Castro's forces took power.
Oh.
Those political upheavals overshadowed baseball in a way no box score ever could. After one final winter with Almendares during the Cuban League's last season, before professional baseball disappeared from the island, Carlos Paula largely vanished from public view. His whereabouts through much of the 1960s remain uncertain. Eventually, sports writer Shirley Povich reported that Paula had escaped Cuba and settled in the Miami area. Even former teammates knew surprisingly little about his later years. He had become once again a private man. Yet those who remembered him all seemed to describe the same person. Former Cuban infielder Mike De La Hoz recalled Carlos as someone who was always laughing, always telling jokes, always singing. His shoes were always polished. He got along with everyone. Quote, a good man. Sometimes. That's the final scouting report anyone can leave behind. Or that's the finest scouting report anyone can leave behind. Carlos Paula died in Miami on April 25th, 1983, at just 55 years old. Today he rests in Miami-Dade County Cemetery. And yet, Sean, here's what sticks with me. Carlos Paula isn't in the Hall of Fame. His major league career lasted only parts of 3 seasons. His statistics don't leap off the page the way Hank Aaron's or Willie Mays's do, but history isn't measured only by numbers. Sometimes it's measured by doors opened. Before Earl Batty became a Washington Star, before Lenny Green, before the franchise finally embraced integration, there was Carlos Paula, a powerful hitter from Havana who dug ditches, fought for prize money, barnstormed across America, endured discrimination, crossed color barriers, and quietly became the first black player ever to wear a Washington Senators uniform. He wasn't baseball's most famous pioneer, but he was one of its bravest, and that's exactly why this story deserves to be told.
Well, damn. A good tale, and definitely one that needed to be told. No, it's crazy. I mean, I guess you think about that, we think about the Jackie Robinsons and, even, Larry Doby and Minnie Minoso and all those guys. But we've talked about Hank Thompson before as well on the podcast. And it is wild that just some of these guys that integrated teams had great careers and other ones just were there and then they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah, not every player that integrated each individual club in the majors was a superstar, and I think that's why guys like Carlos kind of get, lost in the shuffle there. So, that's why it's worthy of being told on this podcast for sure.
Yeah, I think it's super important to be told, and there's so many. We've covered a number of these guys, including Larry Doby and Hank Thompson and stuff like that, or not Larry Doby, sorry, Luke Easter and Hank Thompson and stuff, guys that have integrated teams. So, it's wild, and who knows? Maybe he could have gotten a bigger shot. As you say in that one writer quote, if he hadn't had to wait for all the white ball players to get up there before him.
Yeah, and he may have, had a more memorable career had he not been on the Washington Senators. I couldn't say the same thing. If he was on the Red Sox, it'd probably be more of the same. But
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the team that he's at, and also for anybody that wants, I think it's the number 71, the David Clyde episode, where we talk a lot about the demise of the Senators and the possible, racism that was part of that. But no, that's great. Well, I appreciate you bringing that story. Fucking love hearing these guys that I've never heard of before, despite me knowing probably more than most about the Washington Senators. But yeah, thanks, buddy.
No problem.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we will do it again in 2 weeks. And just quickly before we get out of here, as we usually do, I want to shout out Sabre and encourage our listeners to donate to sabre.org and join your local chapter and get in all that thing, because again, this is another episode that, the research of particularly Darren Gibson at Sabre was hugely integral to telling this story. So I just wanted to shout out Darren and shout out Sabre before we wrap it up here.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Thank you, Sabre. Thank you to all the resources you give us. Yeah, that was an awesome story. I really appreciate it. Till next time, Etsy, where can people find us?
People can find us somewhere along the World Wide Web at Doing Baseball or at Doing.Baseball. If you're looking for us, you want to tell us a story, you want to just chime in on some conversation, say hello, find us at one of those two handles. It'll lead you in the right direction.
100%. And we've heard about the Savannah Bananas. We did it 7 years ago. That is what my family and people on the internet tell me all the time. It's like, have you heard of the Savannah Bananas? And I'm like, yes, we have.
To your point there, a good friend of mine at work, he was off on vacation 2 weeks ago, and he saw an episode of 60 Minutes that was covering the Savannah Bananas, and he felt compelled to call me and ask if I'd heard of the Savannah Bananas. And
7 years ago.
I was like, Mike, I know more about the Savannah Bananas than 60 Minutes does, buddy.
It's true. What is
But
that?
thank
like episode
you.
It's like episode 17. Like,
I think it's like 14
anyway.
or something. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
No, it's back in the catalog. No, thank you for listening. Thank you for chiming in. Thanks to Lutz Brewing. Until next time, I'm Sean.
And I'm Eds.
And we were doing the baseball.
Okay, bye.